last week? Do you struggle to make new friends? Do you wish the friendships that you had were more connected? You heard the stats. We are being consumed by a tsunami of loneliness, and it's killing us. Even if you're not struggling with this, wouldn't you like to have more meaningful connection in your life? What if I could share something with you that would help you connect quicker and faster than you ever thought was possible? There's a science to what happens in relationships that lets us connect quickly and authentically. And there are specific practices I'm going to share with you today. But first, let me regale you with a quick story. I was in a restaurant one time with some friends, and the only other party in there was a group of guys watching a Kentucky-Michigan State basketball game. And on the way to the bathroom, I looked up at the screen and said, "Ew, Kentucky." I didn't even realize I'd said it out loud until I came back. I had a couple drinks. Until I came back out of the bathroom, and one of the guys was glaring at me and pointing at this UK emblem on his shirt. I was like, whoa. And as the night progressed, we ended up mingling with their group. And another guy said to me, "You know, you really offended my friend. He thought you were another obnoxious New Yorker making fun of Kentucky, and you should apologize." And I thought, okay, now you lost me an obnoxious New Yorker, and there's no way I'm apologizing. But then I took a beat and I reconsidered. I tried to be open-minded, because what if it's just a misunderstanding? So I went over to the guy and I apologized, and I explained that I actually, even though I'm from New York, I love Kentucky. I've spent a lot of time there, and the only reason I had made that comment is I had a boyfriend who I really loved who cheated on me with a woman who went to UK. And anytime I saw anything even blue and white, much less reminiscent of the school, it was a total trigger, and it really still hurt. And because I opened up, he explained that the reason he'd had such an extreme reaction was that he had worked in finance at Disney for 10 years, and there were all these obnoxious Ivy League guys from New York who always looked down on Kentucky. So that made a lot of sense to me. And I actually shared back that I too worked at Disney until they tried to smush my feisty spirit into a conformist pancake. And even though we'd had very different experiences there, we could relate. And we began sharing stories back and forth and talked for so long the restaurant closed, and we had to relocate to IHOP, where we talked until the sun came up. So if you haven't guessed the spoiler alert already, 12 years later, we're married. The key was that we were willing to suspend initial judgment and have a more meaningful conversation. Now, obviously, we're not going to marry every person we talk to, nor should we. But as a species, we do naturally crave deeper conversations because we're built to bond. People make the mistake of sticking to small talk because we're afraid to overshare or offend, especially in a climate of cancel culture. And more than that, we've been falsely conditioned to believe that vulnerability is inappropriate and a weakness, rather than what it really is, the linchpin of connection. Research shows that surface conversations are flat and ineffective. We're bored by them, and we don't experience a release of dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that brings pleasure, or oxytocin that creates bonding. Both of those neurotransmitters are transmitted in a deeper conversation, naturally connecting you. Our nervous systems then sync up with the person we're with in a process called neural entrainment. And that live connection predicts the success of a conversation. So in order to build relationships quickly and deeply, authentic ones that is, we actually need to talk about more intimate things, even with people we don't know. And the best way to do that isn't with soft skills that are feigned or contrived, but it's by tapping into your natural instincts to create deeper, more interesting, and meaningful conversations. And there are 3 specific practices that will help you do this. The The first is experiential questions. You have to ask people the right kind of questions if you want to connect. Ones that prompt people to share stories, experiences, beliefs, and values. So instead of, where did you go to college? What was your favorite part of college? Instead of, what do you do for a living? What do you love about your job? Is there anything else you've ever dreamed of doing? Experiential questions succeed because they invite vulnerability without demanding it. The second practice is engaged listening. Now, by asking better questions, the conversation's already more interesting and you don't have to work so hard to pay attention. You just want to listen. But at the same time, you have to show people that you want to listen and that you want to understand them. And the best way to do this is with follow-up questions. Questions that propel the conversation forward and invite even more vulnerability and sharing. You also have to display engaged body language. According to Morabian's rule, only 7% of communication is the words you say. 38% is your tone of voice, and 55% is body language. So your natural energy, expression, posture, the other person's brain is picking up on that unconsciously, and you really can't fake it. The third practice is reciprocal vulnerability. You can't just ask others to open up, you have to share in return. And emotions are a superpower for connection, so let them be part of the conversation. This is what makes people feel safe and close to you. Our stories may differ, just like my husband and I, but we find commonality in the core human emotions, like joy, fear, sadness, that we can connect through. In his book, Super Communicators, Charles Duhigg tells a story about how a psychologist, Nicholas Epley, was invited to work with hedge funders in Connecticut, who, despite managing billions of dollars, were losing business. They tended to focus on problem solving and efficiency rather than emotions. So he had them do an exercise where they had a vulnerable conversation. And literally, they all dreaded it when they heard what he said, which is that you have to describe a time you cried in front of someone. Everybody wanted to leave the room, but then Epley noticed that not only were they talking about crying, they were crying with each other. They reported after that it was the best conversation they'd ever had. So in summary, prepare in advance some experiential questions to ask and have 1 or 2 vulnerable stories to share. Make connection a habit by engaging in this daily, and you'll be amazed at how these shifts will bring you new friendships and deepen the relationships you have. Thank you.